It is wonderful to be here. It is great to see you, and what a facility. I have seen pictures of this place. It's like resurrection. So whoever was involved in the design and thinking through this, what an amazing job. What a wonderful place to gather. I love all the space out there for fellowship and coffee or tea, and this is tremendous. But the best part about it, it's you and all the people here and the presence of God here. Do you have that other picture? People up there? Yeah, thank you. I don't know if it's there. Before I get to that, I do want to say thank you to Pastor Roger. I really appreciate that message. And I told Roger, I said, well done talking about what could be an oppressive topic, but doing it with the compassion and the heart of a father. So great word and great tone. Thank you, Roger. And I really appreciate working with Pastor Roger and Pastor Gillian on our global team and our apostolic council. And when they leave here to come meet with our global leaders, I'm grateful for their wisdom and their perspective. And I always am better when I get to work with them, whether it's in person or on Zoom. So thank you, man. Can we give Gillian and Roger a big hand? Thank you for what you do. A couple of days ago, I flew in from Uganda, and I was privileged to be a part of our first ever East Africa Build Conference. And wow, I had a flashback to 38 years ago when I first went to the Philippines, and we planted a church right in the heart of what is called Manila's University Belt. I felt like I was back there with all of those students in Uganda and their faith and their passion. And I felt like I got younger for just a moment. And then I got on an all-night flight and woke up here, and I felt old again. But while we were there, I want to say special thanks to Pastor Saviwe, not only for wearing the coolest jacket of the day. Since Longa's not here, you have to take the prize. But Pastor Saviwe carried that conference on his back, and his preaching and his ministry and his Q&A was just, I just can't honor you enough and thank you enough for how you ministered there, Saviwe. Fantastic. And also we missed, where are they, Harry and Wendy tremendously there. I was so sad for you not to be there. Harry took about 24 COVID tests trying to get a negative. But while I'm not smart enough to understand all of what goes on, but I know in the sovereignty of God, it was good in some ways for you not to be there because the local leaders were forced to carry the weight, and they really did. And they were nervous, and they were terrified, and that is a great place to be as a young leader, when you're over your head and you know it. What's a terrible place to be as a young leader when you're over your head and you don't know it. That may be more common. But Harry and Wendy, I just honor you for the way you have developed those leaders in East Africa. Thank you for the way you have served. I brought my whole family with me, digitally. And as was mentioned, Deborah and I have 3 adult sons. It's hard to believe that our sons are 36, 34 in a few weeks, and 32. We have 3 amazing God-sent daughter-in-laws, and 7 grandchildren. By the end of this year, there will be 8. And I know COVID was a different experience for everyone, and ups and downs and horrible things. Sometimes it's difficult to say this, but I think our memories of the lockdowns in COVID will be pretty much wonderful, because we had all of our daughter-in-laws were pregnant during COVID and all had babies about the same time within a few months. And so we call the 3 little ones the triplets, although they don't even look like relatives. One of my daughter-in-laws is of Filipino descent, one of my daughter-in-laws is Japanese, and one of my daughter-in-laws is of German descent. And, so you line the 3 up, and it's like, these are not cousins. There is no way. And my Japanese daughter-in-law is our worship leader at our Spanish congregation in Nashville. Go figure that. Father's Japanese, her mother is Colombian, so she grew up speaking Japanese to her dad and Spanish to her mom, and grew up in Tokyo. And so that is an every nation family, okay? And my wife is with me, not digitally, but right here, and it's always just a joy to travel the world with Deborah. Would you stand up for just a minute? And from here, we go to Poland in a few days for our Build Europe conference. And it was interesting, I was in Berlin with our Every Nation Europe regional leadership team, a month ago, a few weeks ago. And we were talking about that we should move the Build conference from Krakow, Poland to somewhere, maybe somewhere else in Europe. And our pastor in Poland, Szymek, who is running 24-hour days, taking in hundreds of refugees. Their church, they've removed all the chairs, and an average of 200 people sleep in their church every night. They wake up the next morning, they do a service, and they preach the gospel, and they give them clothes and food, and then they move on other places. And even most of the church members almost every night have perfect strangers, refugees from Ukraine, sleeping in their homes and feeding them breakfast. And then rolls around, then Sunday they're at church, and then Monday through Saturday they're working day in and day out, and they're making runs to the border to serve refugees, and they're just heroes. And there's no way we can expect Pastor Szymek to host the conference, and he pleaded with us, please don't move this conference from Poland. He said, we need this to be reminded of who we are as a global family. And it'll be so refreshing to our people to kind of get off of refugee for just a few days and hear about one foot on the campus and one foot in the community and taking the gospel to the nations, and then we'll go right back to serving the refugees as long as we need to. But he said, we need this. We can sleep later. So I can't wait to get to Poland and be a part of that Build conference and see our leaders there. So today, I mentioned being a grandfather, and I highly recommend that. It's a great gig. And what I recommend is, if you have children, tell them to get married as soon as they can, so that when the grandchildren come, you still have enough energy to engage. Okay? Don't let your children wait and get married. If they're not, you make it happen. Whatever it takes. Threaten them, bribe them, prophesy them. I don't know how you motivate them, but just doesn't even matter who. Just get them. No, okay. Now, and if you're married, there's a mandate. Be fruitful. Multiply for the sake of your parents becoming grandparents. We are privileged that our children all live within 5 minutes of each other, and that's about 20 minutes from where we live now. And my wife keeps, because one of my daughter-in-laws works and her husband works, and so multiple times a week, my wife picks up the kids from school, and when I get home, they're at our house. And then their parents will come pick them up at some point and take them home. And the most beautiful words in my ear is when any of my grandchildren look at their parents and go, we don't want to go home, we want to go to Marmie's house. That's her. But when they're at our house, here's my job: fixing things they broke. One of my grandsons loves to build Lego towers, and then his little brother loves to tear them up. And so he wants me to come fix them. My 7-year-old granddaughter, how old is she, 7 or 8? She has these little, actually I think it's every single product made from the Encanto movie. Every single one. And she does these elaborate things, and then the little ones come and mess it all up, and then she wants me to fix it and to fix them. Sometimes things are really broken, sometimes they're just messed up, but they think I can fix everything. Now, it's not true, but it feels good that they think that. They break things, they mess things up, and my job is to fix those things. In line with that, someone asked me yesterday in our meeting with the cluster leaders, I was talking about multi-generational leadership transition. And the fact that no matter what leadership role you're in now, one day you will not be in that leadership role, someone else will. So we can either live in denial or we can live in preparation. Someone else will have my position. Someone else will do this, what I'm doing. And I got a common question that I'm asked often when I talk about that. And someone asked me, okay, we're doing that. We are empowering the next generation, but what are we supposed to do now? Is there still any need for us? Is there still any place for us? Are we still of value? Yes, be a grandparent. No. In the ministry world, that's a valid question. That's an important question, and today's message is going to answer that. Also, it'll speak to the emerging generation. I want you to turn to 2 Kings chapter 6, and this is one of the strangest, weirdest stories in the whole Old Testament. And listen, there are a lot of strange, weird stories in the Old Testament. To me, this is one of the oddest. I've read it hundreds of times because I read my Bible every year, and I just speed read through this story because it's so weird. I've never understood it. I don't know why it's there. It makes no sense. When I think about, do I believe it? Well, it's hard to believe, but then I think, I believe that Jesus was bodily resurrected and he was born of a virgin. So if I believe that, then anything and everything is possible, right? So I read this story and I've never gotten anything out of it, ever. I've never attempted to preach it, but I was in Manila a month ago, and during COVID, the finances were so difficult, we had to retire, and I don't know if you have the word here, but in Philippine labor laws, we had to retrench over 200 people from our Manila staff. And about 50 of those were people who took early retirement, and we were able to bless them 50% more than what the law required with retirement, so we were able to do that. And I met with these 50 retired pastors. To take early retirement, under that law, you have to be at least 50 and you have to have worked in the organization for at least 10 years. So here I'm in a room with people in their 50s and 60s who have been vocational pastors, and now what? I didn't know what I was going to tell them. I hadn't been in the Philippines in more than 2 years, and here I am, and there's a meeting. When I landed in the Philippines, I was just doing my regular read through the Bible stuff. And I got to 2 Kings, and I read this story, and I'm still not sure what I'm going to tell these retired pastors. What do we do with our lives now? And I thought, you know what? I think this weird story is for these guys and their wives. And then when I came here, I was looking for my notes for that, and then I realized I didn't have any notes. I just stood up and read the story and talked about it. So I've been scrambling finding notes that don't exist. So here we go. All right? 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 1 through 7. Now the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, "See, the place where we dwell under your charge is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, and each of us get there a log, and let us make a place for us to dwell there." And he answered them, "Go." Then one of them said, "Be pleased to go with your servants." And he answered, "I will go." So he went with them. And when they came to the Jordan, they cut down trees, but as one was felling a log, his axe head fell into the water, and he cried out, "Alas, my master, it was borrowed." Then the man of God said, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him the place, he cut off a stick, threw it in there, and made the iron float. And he said, "Take it up." So he reached out his hand and took it. Now, this is the word of God. So Lord, help us apply this in our lives. Today we're talking about freedom. Freedom, freedom. My message is freedom to fail. I want you, especially if you're part of an emerging generation, an emerging leader, this sermon today is permission to fail. Not sin. Permission to fail. It's a big difference. Not fall. Permission to fail. Freedom to fail. And then I'm going to answer the question in this message that I was asked yesterday. We've empowered these young people. What do? Wait for them to fail. It won't take long. All right, you ready? Verse 1. These young prophetic interns, they came to Elijah and they said, what we're doing under your authority, this is just too small. We need room to grow. We need to be able to stretch our wings. We need to try new things. They didn't imply they wanted to get out from under his leadership. They just wanted a little freedom. They didn't run and rebel, we're going to go do our own thing. They acknowledged their place under an older, experienced leader, but they just wanted a little freedom. Do we have to wear Saul's armor? Can we try it our way? Can we lighten up a little bit? Can we make a few changes? Every experienced leader, if you have an ear to hear, you have heard this. If you've built a healthy culture of listening, you've heard this. If you've never heard this and you're an experienced leader, you are not listening. The trick is not to take it personally, not to immediately shut it down, not to immediately get insecure, not to feel like you're being rejected and they're saying everything you're doing is wrong. If you're an emerging leader, the trick is, listen to me now. When you start feeling the need to spread your wings under the leaders you're under, watch your tone. Talk to those leaders, not about those leaders. Too often, there's a lot of talk about that, but there's never really talking to the people who can make the change. Verse 2. So they go and they say, hey, it's too small for us, and so now they're asking permission. And this is the approach. They said, let us go to the Jordan and each of us get there a log and make a place to dwell. You know what he said? Elisha, this great prophet who had miracles and all this, what did he say? What was the answer? Go. Permission to fail. Freedom to fail. Give it a shot. When I got to Manila weeks ago after being away for 2 years and 2 months, I was talking to Deborah and I, good friends that we've worked with for forever. Some of you might know him, but Pastor Ariel was the leader of one of our largest congregations in all of the Philippines. And he recently, during COVID, he turned his church. He's actually in the process of turning his church over. And he has now stepped into a role of our new COO. So he's gone from being a pastor of one of our largest congregations to taking the role after 25 years, I guess, of pastoring. Now he's taking over because we have every nation. We have 4 different legal entities there, a foundation to help the poorest of the poor. There's a educational foundation, Every Nation Seminary. There's a church, and then there's Victory's the church, and then there's Every Nation, which is they're registered as this mission movement, a global. So we've got different things, and so he's the COO overseeing all of the stuff, all right? And I said, Ariel, how's it going? And he said this. He said, my job as the COO is to let me say this first, forgot, give you a Filipino lesson. In the Filipino language, the way you say yes, the word yes in English, in Filipino, it's o-o. It's spelled O-O. O-O. So he said, my job as a COO is to say O-O. Yes. He said, whatever the request is from our pastors, the answer is yes. Because you can get bureaucracy that shuts down ministry. Bureaucracy kind of grows, and then you can't really get things done. And then as organizations grow, you have to figure out workarounds. Happens in every organization. And so Ariel came in and said, my job as the COO is to say O-O, is to say yes, no matter what your vision is. I said, how's that working for the budget? He goes, we're still figuring that out. Yeah, that's uh-oh. That's how Elisha, he's like the COO. They said, hey, it's a little confining here. We've got ideas. We're not sure how to do them. Can we go try our ideas out? Elisha didn't say, you rebel, get in line. He said, go, give it a shot. Let's see, maybe that's a good idea. Probably not, but let's go. Let's give it a shot. Oh, let's go do it. See what's happening? Verse 3, then, wise young leaders, watch what happens. They probably expected no. Hey, we got some ideas. We love serving under you, but we've got some ideas that we think can we try them? Go for it. I don't know how far they went, and then suddenly they thought, okay, this is a little scary out here. And what do they say next? Verse 3, they go, hey, Elisha, would you come with us? I'll watch my grandchildren sometimes. They'll start walking off, and they want a little independence, and I'll just wait. And they go pretty far, and they turn around and okay, going back. Wise leaders, they said, please, verse 3, go with us. And Elisha answered. He didn't go, all right, your idea, you go give it a shot. No, he said, I'll go. All right, I'm in. I'll go with you. This is a beautiful picture, verse 3, of multi-generational work. The fact that the older generation so empowered these young leaders to give it a shot. But what's beautiful about it is they started on their way, and then they, wait a minute, you know what? We don't want to do this without you. Would you come with us? If you lead well, as you start becoming the experienced leader, the older leader, and you start empowering the next generation of leaders, if you've done it right, they'll want you with them. I think about my adult sons now, and we didn't do everything right, but we did some things right. And I'm seeing it as adults. A few years ago, I was in the Philippines, and it was, I guess it was July. Deborah and I were there for a while. We were going to be back in a while to the States, and two of my sons called, and they said, Dad, when are you getting back to the U.S.? And I gave them the date, and they said, okay, we want to go to New York. They said, we want to go to New York and go to the U.S. Open tennis, and hey, can you go with us? Now, I know sometimes parents, when their kids want to do something, you're waiting for the end going, and can you pay the tickets and the flights and the hotels? But the fact is, my sons didn't need my help. Their business is booming. They're doing well. They were fine without me, but they wanted me to go with them. So we flew to New York. We went to the U.S. Open. We watched a guy who trained with my youngest son. They were training partners when they were teenagers, and watched him play, and it was a great week. A few weeks ago, just before this trip, my three sons and I, again, their idea, hey, let's drive to Memphis and watch the first round of the NBA playoffs together. They didn't need me to pay for the tickets. We went. We had a weekend together, hung out, watched the NBA game, ate. They wanted me. They didn't need me. If you build right, the next generation, even if they don't need you doing it all, they will want your presence. But if on verse 1 you react every time they have a complaint, they're not going to want you around. Where are we? What verse are we on? Verse 4. So he went with them. Elijah goes with them, and they start cutting down trees because they've got this vision of what they want to build. The place where they are, they feel like it's too small. They've got this grand vision. So now here we go. They're cutting down trees. All's well. Elisha, I don't know what he's doing. He's kind of watching and, thinking up prophecies, whatever prophets do. Okay? And then they're cutting, and the axe head, I'm not sure what prophet, I don't know. The prophet I hang around, Jim LaFoon, what we do is talk about lunch and then dinner and then breakfast. And my other favorite prophet, Manny Carlos, that's exactly what I do with him. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'm sure Elisha was eating like any good prophet. So they're chopping, and what happens? The axe head flies off. It falls in a pond. It sinks. And now they've lost their ability to fulfill their mission. They've lost the tools to make their vision happen. They've got a vision, they can't make it happen any longer. You get the picture. And it sinks to the bottom, and then what do they say? What do they say? They say, alas, my master. Look at that language. Now they're going, hey, look, you're really in charge here. They were out, we're going to go do this. Come on. Oh, maybe you should come with us just in case. And then the just in case happened. Okay, master, look at the honor. We had a better idea now, master. Uh-oh, what's the problem? It was borrowed. You know what that means? We're in debt now. We owe this to someone else. I love empowering next generation leaders, but I have never met one. Listen to me. They might exist, but not in the Philippines and not in the U.S. I'm sure South Africa is different. But I have never found one who could not completely obliterate the budget. I don't think we've ever done a campus conference that even almost landed on budget. I don't know, that's what happens. The anointing falls, people get saved and called in the ministry, the glory cloud comes, and then the bills come in next week. And they're off in the glory and basking in their victory, and we're going, all right, how do we make this thing float? So it sinks, they're in debt. Now they really need Elisha. They forgot how confining it was. And so what does he do? This is so important right now. What does he do? He doesn't shake his head and go, you guys, what were you thinking? He doesn't take over and bump them out of the way. He doesn't demote them for their failure. He doesn't chastise them. He doesn't rebuke them. He doesn't scold them. He doesn't point his finger and the prophet finger and I told you so. He doesn't do any of that. You know what he does? What does he do? Look at verse 6. What does he do? This is one of the most important things that experienced leaders and parents of adult children can do. If at this point you treat them like children, it's going to take you a long time to recover from that. He asks a question. I'm learning this. My wife is the best question asker, if that's a thing, asker of questions that I've ever met. Rather than telling people what to do, she'll ask a question, and they'll leave thinking. And when you ask a question and people think of the answer, then they own the answer. It's when they're little, you just tell them what to do. You don't reason with a 3-year-old. Good luck with that. You just tell them. But when they're adults, telling them what to do rarely works if you want a relational context. Asking questions to make them think and help them reason in parenting and in leadership. So he asked a question. Simple question. Verse 6, where did it fall? Where did it fall? And they showed him, and this is the bizarre part. He cut off a stick and threw it in there and made it float. Huh? I don't know. I'm going to let one of the prophets explain that. This prophet did it. So Gillian, you explain what happened. I'm sure that's the thing prophets do all the time. Just get a stick, throw it in there, boom. But look what he does in verse 7. Watch this. Verse 6, experienced leaders ask questions, and experienced leaders fix the problem without fixing blame. Where the blame lies doesn't matter. Blaming and assigning guilt doesn't ever fix the problem. So is there a place for experienced leaders? Absolutely. But look what happens in verse 7. Elisha threw the stick in, the axe head floated, and here's what he didn't do. Okay, you young fools, get out of the way, watch it happen. He did not reach in and grab it and then cut down the rest of the trees. What did he do? He fixed their problem and he got out of the way again. Now, get back to your mission. And I'm here. I'm here for you. And maybe he helped them tighten it on the axe a little better. And maybe he had a few little tips we don't read about here. But what he didn't do is take over everything they were doing because they made a mistake. If you're going to be successful in multiplying a leadership pipeline in your ministry and you're an experienced leader, you've got to make peace with mistakes. Mistakes are opportunities for a new relational connection to help solve it together. Mistakes are not proof that I should have never let go anyway. Let me end with this. 3 lessons for experienced leaders. Number 1, listen to emerging leaders without judgment, condescension, reaction, and insecurity. Listen. Discern. Create a listening culture where they can go to you if they feel confined. Now, they don't have to talk about you, they can talk to you. Create a listening culture. Listen. Number 2, be a go leader, not a no leader. When they asked him, he didn't say, absolutely not. Why are you complaining about this? My generation built it. You think it's too small? What's wrong with you? You've never done anything? No, be a go leader. Let him give it a shot, unless it's unethical, unbiblical, immoral, and just plain really, really, really dumb. But for the most part, be a go leader. And thirdly, give the next generation the freedom to fail. Lessons for emerging leaders. Number 1, talk to, not about, the experienced leaders. Lesson number 2, when you talk to them, present a plan, not a complaint. People come and lay out their complaints to me. I have no ear to hear. You come with a solution and a plan, I am all ears. Don't come and talk about the problem. I am aware of the problem. Bring me a solution and I'll give you a shot. Bring me a plan and I'll say, go try it. But if you're just going to come and complain about the problems, I already do that myself. I don't need help. I'm good at that. Number 3, lesson for emerging leaders. Admit your mistake and ask for help. I have endless patience for young leaders making mistakes. What I cannot tolerate is when a young leader's obviously made a mistake but won't admit it. I can't trust that leader. When you make a mistake and pretend like everything's okay, I can't work with a person like that. But it doesn't matter how many mistakes they make, good-hearted mistakes, as long as you own it, I'm glad to come help. Got it? Now, I told you I started out talking about, as a grandfather, one of my jobs, at least my grandkids think it's my job, is to fix everything that their cousins and siblings break. They knock down the Lego tower, I'm supposed to fix it. They made a puzzle, the little one comes and tears it up, I'm supposed to rebuild it. Sometimes I'm glad to do that, sometimes, no, you fix it. Thank God we're a multi-generational global movement where we can give young people freedom to spread their wings, freedom to try, freedom to run with the vision, freedom to fail. And then we can step in and help them learn and help them recover the tools or whatever failed so they can get back at what they were working on. But more than that, thank God we have a heavenly Father, not just spiritual fathers, who we can run to, no matter what we've done to mess it up and to fail. And he has his arms wide open. We can run to him. And he gets us right back in the game. So I'm grateful that we get to do this together among multi-generations. And I hope everyone here, old, young, I hope you feel the freedom to step out in faith, to take your shot, and to fail, and get back up and recover it together, and go back at it again. Lord, thank you for all the opportunities every one of us have had, and all the opportunities we've messed up with a good heart, but maybe a terrible plan. Thank you for your patience, and Lord, may we as leaders have patience with those coming behind us. May we remember how many times we tried and failed, and how many times we got to try again and again and again. May we have that same kind of encouragement and faith. In Jesus' name, amen.